and welcome back to Valoranting. I do want to cuss. I personally think that is fucking bullshit. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? This is the best produced podcast I've ever been in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Valoranting. I'm WTF Moses, joined this week by Hypoc, Veli, and some random person sitting behind me. I'm excited to have everybody on board for this week's show. We have a lot going on in the Valorant community. We finally have seen a teaser for a new map and many other developments through the week. First of all, Hypoc, happy to have you along.
Hey, happy to be here. Thank you very much for bringing me on, guys.
No worries. And Veli, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. It's good to finally work with Hypoc. You know, legend after legend keeps coming on this show to fill in for Pansy. I'm going to give a special shout out to Pansy as well. She was fucking amazing during the CS finals. But yeah, I'm happy for the day, man. We got a new map. I've been waiting for this my whole life.
I've been waiting for Pansy to return to the show for my entire life. We miss you, Pansy. Let's jump right into it. We've got some developer news. Most of it is actually, well, some of it was data mined. Some of it actually appeared in the game already. So the first bit is the ray gun skins that we saw the last time we had this show, we were talking about the ray gun skins, but they've been in the game now for a little bit. I'm not really sure how I feel about them, but we also have these avalanche skins coming back from the beta. There's a bit of a cold theme coming along, maybe because it's almost winter time. And we also have, I think we have one more. We have, I believe it was a teaser image, if I remember. This was,
I think so.
Came out, I believe, just a couple of days ago before everything else. Daniel, let's see that decode image that was teased. So this came out on Twitter, I believe, and then there was some like anonymous conjecture about what it all meant. There are various languages in here. But basically it all came up to be again kind of guiding you towards this winter theme. Bring a coat, forget weapon, it is cold there. Act 3, a lot of conjecture, but it doesn't really matter because earlier today we did actually learn that it's a new map called Tundra. And that's what's up. That's what's happening. I'm not sure if we have an image already. It did come out like minutes or maybe even an hour before the show came out, but the new map Tundra was announced. We haven't seen too much of it yet, but let's just talk a little bit about that. Hypoc, finally we're getting another new map.
Yeah, I mean it's only a benefit, right? Especially if we look at this from a competitive aspect. I mean, in no way at all have things stagnated in terms of gameplay, but I mean, just from a competitive standpoint, it's so good to broaden that map pool. It allows for a couple of teams to kind of flex out, a bit of diversity, and maybe establish a new home map. Obviously,
right.
That'll be left up to the teams themselves.
Sorry, my dogs are murdering each other.
That's what that is. Okay.
Yeah. No, I was wondering. Like, I don't. Oh, it's called Icebox. I thought it was called Tundra. Icebox is a cool name as well. It reminds me of oh god, what was that, like the op map back in like CS 1.6 where you're that little frozen whatever the hell it was called, like I can't remember. Some I'm sure there's people screaming at from Counter-Strike screaming at their monitors right now. Many an hour playing that.
It reminds me of Volskaya from Overwatch.
Yeah, exactly. Overwatch.
Just from the flyover.
Yeah. It's really funny. If there's any Rainbow Six heads in the chat, there's literally a map on Rainbow Six with like the same setting. It's a boat stuck in ice with the ice mountains behind it. It looks really cool. It's basically. Map. I'm happy though, man. It's like
Canada, where everything is frozen, and like even the luxury yachts for some reason have run aground in like a frozen wasteland.
Everything Canadian in video games is frozen. You're right. We just got a new character skin, and he's like frozen. But I'm really happy though, Moses, because of the fact that now in the best of 5 finals, we can have 5 different maps being played. Mm-hmm. That is something that we have never seen in Valorant before, and I also think it helps with competitive integrity because of the fact that we've seen the same teams play on the same 4 maps for so long, and there wasn't really a lot of variety. We were patient. We knew it was coming. But I also saw a tweet coming in from a Riot dev. I forgot the name. But she said, we pushed this out early for you guys. And my initial thought is, okay, they're pushing this out for us because First Strike is now here, and they're really trying to push this esports scene. And it shows once more how involved Riot is with not just the entire scene in the casual community, but they're really focused on the esports side of things. They want to be as perfect as possible. I love it, man. About damn time.
Now I do like the fact, like I'm taking your report on that. Like they said, we've pushed this out. I haven't actually seen that myself. But is that like, if so, like we've done this for you, okay? We wanted to push this out early for you.
I'm a believer.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, that's kind of the relationship here is we keep paying you exorbitant amounts of money for skins, and you give us new content every once in a while, right? Is that not the trade that we make here?
It's a good setup.
It is. Yes.
Like, I'm gonna keep buying your $120 bundles of skins if you do promise to continue to grace me with your new content every once in a while. It's very kind of you, right? But of course, I mean, it's nice to have. And the one thing that I took away just from the little bit of a flyover that we saw was the verticality. It looks like you're going to be able to get up on those big boxes. Oh, are we going to the Canada map? Yeah, see what I mean? Like looks like there's some
back, baby.
Yeah, you can wall up, you can blast pack around like that. That to me is interesting. Now without having seen too much, but you will never know what you can get onto until you actually get into the map. But it does appear kind of complicated, but then again, we're all just looking at like a top-down view without actually seeing it. But it does look fairly isolated, a lot of laneways and stuff like that. What's your take, Hypoc?
I mean, it's definitely it's hard to judge it from where you fly over until we see some kind of like gameplay trailer or something like that. But again, the verticality could be a concern. It's a bit weird if it's over the top in like a TAC FPS. Again, I do like it because it does allow for some of the agents to obviously flex their abilities a bit more. I guess in terms of the other maps, you only really see it kind of on like a site by site basis, right? So like Haven site, there's a couple of things to jump on, but it's not necessarily like, I mean, in most scenarios, if you're on one of them, you're dead pretty quick, and especially obviously high level competitive. But we'll have to wait and see it. But the other one is, I mean, a lot of the criticism there's been around the map design in Valorant has been about these wide open spaces where, you know, it's obviously sticking to a traditional 3-lane or you know, a 2-site map with like a wide open mid and then kind of 2 lanes into each site. So it's going to be interesting to see because it seems there's a real kind of variety of what's going on, like that bar area you saw with like a cafeteria or whatever, and then the huge wide open outside spaces. So it's definitely one we'll have to wait and see some gameplay of, but it's going to be a bit of a change up from the other maps, I feel.
I like it.
Really? You like it?
I like it. So the verticality thing, okay, that immediately made me moist, right? Only for the simple fact, like, okay, I come from Rainbow Six and games like Halo. And I think verticality adds a lot of skill, but also I think there's an important part about verticality that we're not talking about. And it's the fact that Valorant is going to further distinguish themselves as something so much more different than Counter-Strike, right? This isn't the same game. And now you're going to have agents that specialize on this map. Think of your Sages, think of your Jets, think of players like Omen Maze. I can see Hiko dominating here. This is what you want to see. And by having that verticality, it brings much more strategic smarts. You're going to have to bring your IQ. You're going to have to bring your A game. And I want to see, you know, the theory crafting when it comes to strats from this now. Boosts are going to be everything.
This is just the spawn side. And this is probably coming from the Overwatch thing that you mentioned, Hypoc, but I'm getting like a strong TF2 vibe from this map as well. It's just,
I can say, I can see it.
Overwatch and TF2 are of the same genetics in my mind, but regardless, there's a new map. We'll see how it plays. We can talk about a 5-second flyover all day long, but we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah.
But in conjunction with this new map, we also got the news just a day or two ago that for Act 3 there are competitive changes coming in that a lot of people have responded positively to. So let's watch the overview. This is quite a long video, so buckle in. If you haven't seen this, I've been saving myself for the show to see it. So let's roll this from the developers.
Hey everyone, I'm Joe Ziegler, the game director of Valorant, and as you can see, we're all still working from home, but that won't stop us from listening and responding to your feedback. I first wanted to say thank you all for coming on this journey so far. It's been a wild 4 months since launch, and while we're still getting in the rhythm of shipping stable patches, I think Act 3 is going to be the best one yet. But today I'm not here to talk about all of Act 3. Just one set of changes coming across Act 3 of this year and Episode 2 of next year. Changes to one very important part of our game, competitive mode. Climbing the ranks is at the heart of the competitive experience of Valorant. But as we've seen from your feedback over the past 2 acts, this system is still in its early stages, and we know we need to do a better job of improving understanding of the system, rank progress, and high rank play. We want your ranked matches to always feel like you have a fair chance of winning, but we struggle to do that at the top ranks where it's harder to put solo players in fair matches. We've also heard from others that there's a desire for even more organized team play, but just not in the same queue. I want to say that we hear you on all of these things, and while some may take time to implement, please keep the feedback coming. We intend to continue growing and evolving Valorant for years to come, and a part of that is building it with you. And that was my piece. I just wanted to check in with you all before passing the mic off to David Cole, one of our game designers. He'll more clearly walk you through our assessment of the situation, as well as what we intend to do now and in upcoming months for Ranked. Take it away, D. Cole.
Yo, I'm David. I work on Valorant as a game designer, and I'll be steering the ship on our design for competitive going forward.
Yo.
When we were first setting up Ranked for launch, one big goal we had was to embrace social play, to let players from wider skill disparities play together, and to focus much of our ranked systems on personal progression. But as we'd heard from your feedback, Ranked is about competition, like chasing a higher rank relative to your peers, or knowing that your rank you've achieved is worth something because everyone's climbing under the same conditions. For us, while the former values of social play are important, they should never come at the cost of your ranked accomplishments. So, we're going to take a step back and simplify our goals with Ranked, which you'll see over the course of Act 3, and then next year in Episode 2, and beyond. Act 3 is about moving quickly. We want to bring back more competitive integrity to the queue and get you focused on what matters most, winning. A team with a wide delta in rank definitely makes this harder. As such, we're going to tighten the restriction on rank disparities for competitive queue, reducing them from a 6 to a 3 rank difference. For example, the lowest rank a Diamond 3 can queue with is a Platinum 3, and the highest they can queue with is an Immortal 3. Additionally, Immortal plus rank movement will be purely impacted by wins or losses and how decisive the match outcome was. We're going to start here, learn how this impacts gameplay, and hopefully apply it to all their tiers by Episode 2. Along with reducing skill disparity in competitive, we are also adding the ability to select your preferred server. We can't fully guarantee you'll always get the server you want due to matchmaking reasons, but this feature will notably increase the chance to get your preferred game server. Next on our priority list is improving the experience of high-ranked players in the ranked climb. Hopefully some of the changes in Act 3 will address common pain points, but there are extra features already in the works for Episode 2. A few of these include creating a public, region-based leaderboard and a potential restriction on the queue size at Immortal Plus to Solo Duo. These ranks are where the matchmaking pool is very small and therefore harder to reliably make fair matches. We're working on these changes as fast as possible, and we'll have an update when we can share. Currently, we're on track to deliver these changes early next year with the launch of Episode 2. We also know that these changes come with trade-offs. We know there are many of you who like to queue for competitive experience with friends of a wide skill range. We see this demand for this kind of team-based competition, and it's on our roadmap. We just believe this shouldn't be the focus of the competitive queue, and we'll hopefully have more news next year. Like all changes, we'll keep our ears to the ground to see what's working and what's not. Thanks, and keep us in check with your feedback.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I think that the most of the most common points of feedback were addressed in this video, and generally speaking, I think it was relatively. Actually, I want to even say relatively. I say almost universally well received by almost everybody who saw it, which is always good. So I guess where I'd like to start the discussion, Hypoc, is obviously they've had to make these changes after the fact. So, and they've also changed their messaging a little bit around the desire to make those changes. So why do you think that is here? I guess we'll say 6 months after the game launched.
I mean, you know, rank systems in games, the biggest problem with is it takes a long time for something like this, for like an ELO system or an MMR system to kind of stabilize. So I think some of the issues maybe were overlooked. Obviously, and it's difficult to talk about because obviously Immortal 1 Plus, you're pretty much talking about like the top 1.1% 1% of players.
Very small amount of players.
Yeah, but I think that's really where like the problems are most apparent. I mean, if you take into account the queue restrictions, right? So moving it from now down from 6 ranks apart to 3 ranks apart. I mean, I've had experience of like when I first hit Immortal, it was kind of just a lottery of what lobby you got into. If you got into a team against, you know, a stack of Immortal 2s and you've got Diamond 1s and Plats, even sometimes, like having an Immortal and a Plat matched together in a game, just I mean, in my eyes, should never happen. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, the 2 reasons that players generally are happier to queue longer or queue longer for a game. The first one is obviously a more balanced match, and you know, that's in terms of ranking, but also in terms of ping. Like people will queue longer to be on like their preferred server location, right? So, I mean, it's good that they've kind of attacked a couple of different issues in these changes.
Veli, how about yourself? What do you think about Riot? I guess I'm not gonna say like flip flopping, but like evolving their outlook, because I remember not long ago, solo queue was just not on the table.
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
Well, solo queue's on the table if you're in a trash rank like me, right? Like that's easy. But then when you talk about the Wardells and people that are actually good, okay, maybe I just got a lucky experience with the game. But I personally haven't had issues. But you know, I have friends that would queue up for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you know it sucks. But I've also seen players like Wardell saying, "No, I can't get a match." I see screenshots of people just memeing, saying, "You know, I'm waiting for an hour." So that's one thing I'm happy about. The rank queue thing where they lowered from 6 levels to 3. That's something I'm really interested in seeing. I'm gonna admit, when it comes to the rank side of things, I don't feel like I'm educated enough to really jump in that conversation and say what needs to be fixed. But I'm wondering if that's going to help the experience, because I would guess from an uneducated point of view that it kind of helps because you have a wide variety of ranks you could add into the queue, right?
Go ahead. I kind of think that the window in which you're matching is being narrowed. So essentially, like to Hypoc's point, if you're at a high rank in like Immortal 3 or something like that, and you have like a diamond player show up, like especially a lower end diamond player show up into your queue, like they're obviously that you have, for most people, diamond is like their goal, or even in, you know, like most players are going to be in that between gold and like platinum. That's kind of like the meat of most experienced
sense.
or at least regular players of TAC FPS, which kind of makes the bulk of the population. But if you have if you take that difference between a diamond player and an immortal player, it's massive. It's a massive difference.
Oh, okay,
huge.
So makes sense.
Yeah. So even if you have like and it continues to get there's more disparity as you go up the ranks as well, because if you're at that radiant level, and even if you're queuing with someone who's like diamond 3 or immortal 1, that is a huge difference in skill. Like it's very noticeable. So even though the player pool gets much smaller. Go ahead, Hypoc.
I was actually going to say you're absolutely right, and that there's actually a huge gap between. I mean, I've for me, and I've got 2 accounts at Immortal 3, and I've played pretty much since release. For me, the biggest gap is between like subtle. I tried to play it off a little bit of like. I mean, the biggest gap for me is between like Immortal 1 and Immortal 2, and there's, like I said, there's still this issue of there is still some inflation. Like people are in the rank that they're not supposed to be. And you can put, you know, a large percentage of that down to maybe stacking, you know, people playing in a 5 stack, and, you know, that, like, again, not calling anybody out that's a Sage main, but like historically, you know, they'll sit there and play Sage, and they're just going to be healing people up. And I mean, a big frustration was like a Sage that goes like double negative but has 18 assists by the end of the game because they've just been healing
along for the ride.
They're still gonna just tank like rating.
That's
that's kind of. I mean, I mean, the one thing that should never happen is like the one thing that should never happen is like if I'm Immortal 3, I should never have anybody in my game that I couldn't queue up with to play with. Like that should just never happen.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Valley, go ahead. Everything else to
No,
add there?
I'm with him. I agree. That makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense. There's obviously a deep science behind this. I'm thinking on the terms of, okay, this is going to be shorter queue times because you have a larger pool, but also now
I
Hypoc
don't
has me
expect the
thinking
queue times to
about.
get better.
Yeah, I've been a part of some random stacks where they have a complete shitter on the team and it ruins my experience. So I'm happy.
I completely feel that the queue times are actually going to become much longer, which is what they were kind of battling against, is the fact that they have
Yes.
this they know that people want certain things, like, and honestly, let's be real about it, when it comes to like 2020 quarantine gamers, we're very sensitive and we just want our cake and we want to eat it too. So we want to be able to pick the best server. We only want to play with people within a couple of ranks of us. And we also want the best queue times. We want shorter queue times, and we want to be able to play with our friends, even if they're gold. We also like all these other things. So like you're gonna have all these different things kind of coming into this end product where they are gonna have to make I guess an adjustment, or they're gonna have to deal with a negative after effect. And in my opinion, it's likely going to be queue times. And
yes, I mean,
whatever, bro.
I was
You
just
asked for
gonna say
this. Now you have to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
That, and that's always gonna be, like I said, that there's only really ever one or two main reasons that players are happier to queue longer. The server location thing for me is, I mean, it's not. I feel this is more of a problem in NA. I don't really see a lot of European players complain about. I mean, my internet in the UK. I mean, the only thing worse than the internet infrastructure in the UK is our esports prospects. But I've never seen over 40 ping. I've never seen over 40 ping in any of my ranked games. I don't hear EU players complaining about it. But even just then, like logically, if somebody's happy to say, I want to play on this server, they're going to be happy queuing a bit longer. Like that's a given in my eyes. You're putting yourself in that situation the other day.
Right. And obviously with North America, you're going to have a much larger geographical, distribution of players. So, I mean, you have the West Coast, East Coast, Central. I happen to live in New Mexico for some reason. Ping people like, that's where you come into issues. But Europe typically, just considering the density of their populations and the actual smaller geographical location. Yeah, I've never heard of EU players and ping concerns are almost never, unless they're matching up with like, oh god, I got a 75 ping Russian player in my game. Call the police. Well, I mean, so anyway,
in that situation, it's not even the ping that's the problem. It's the fact that none of them can join voice chat.
Right, exactly. Yeah, all you can hear is like electro beat in the background and someone dragging on a cigarette. All right, so let's move on. We've got some roster moves. Energy, after clearly they've been watching the podcast, because I think not even a week or two ago we were talking about how they may have spent $40 million or around there on Call of Duty and Overwatch League, but for some reason Valorant just too expensive. Can't get into that. They've changed their tune. They have picked up a couple of players, specifically around the Energy family. I guess Daps and Som, I believe, have been around the Energy organization for a while, and they picked up Chet Singh, the former coach of the 100 Thieves CS:GO team, I believe, if I'm remembering that correctly.
I guess he was also the NRG coach as well for CS:GO at one point. So.
Oh, was he? Okay, there you go. So back home. So Hypoc, what are your thoughts on this? I know you're kind of tangentially connected to like the whole Call of Duty scene and that kind of thing. So is this a surprise from Energy to you?
It's not. No, I think NRG, I mean, it's safe to say that no personal bias, obviously. NRG have just gone, I mean, they've been going from strength to strength for the last 2 years or so in terms of growth. But obviously, most recently, back end of last year, obviously, Hex stepping away from Optic or however you want to word it, and then obviously joining the NRG. It's only gone bigger since then. Obviously, the Huntsman being a big factor in that, obviously bringing across a couple of really big personalities. But in terms of esports, I mean, they've got like the most successful Rocket League team in the world, like ranked #1 right now, I'm pretty sure, and have been for a while. I think it was a given. It was more of a when, not if they were going to come into Valorant. And I think as well in chat, that's probably the right move. That's the right person that you want to kind of start the project with, to be honest.
Yeah. Moses, really? I did a little research. on that Som guy. Now, you guys know me. I come from console and all that cool stuff, right? I'm not really too versed in the Counter-Strike world of things. So that's all right. Let me look up Psalm, Shet, and let's see what the big deal is around these players, because apparently there's somebody. Turns out Psalm, if I'm correct, is an 18-year-old rifler that came from Gen G, and the guy was a prodigy. And apparently he was a rising star in CS. He's done very well, especially recently. In Flashpoint, he got top 6. Road to Rio NA, he got first place. Pro League Season 12 with ESL, he even got top 6. Now, this shows that this rifler that played with Gen G is fantastic. And when Daps even said that he was interested in joining Valorant, you even saw some TSM guys maybe playing around, but they were like, hey, tell you guys to talk to my guys. Let's get you in the scene. That just shows that there's big interest in these players because of their skill level. And if they can bring that rifle skill, that IQ, that pure aim that they have, that they've proven time and time again is going to win them big money when it comes to CS, they bring that over to Valorant. I think that NRG, they went about this the right way. I thought NRG was going to go the complexity route and just sign, some up-and-comers. Yeah, they're doing... instead of signing just the biggest names out there, the Hicos, the Steels or whatever. But, they got some young gunners, some hungry gunners, up-and-comers. And that's the way you want to build your team around. And Chet, I don't know too much about him, but from what I've heard when people were giving him his goodbyes on Twitter, apparently he's the real deal. He's a great guy.
Yeah,
he knows what the hell he's doing. He's so well-respected.
Yeah, he's got a lot of respect.
I got excited right there. I'm sorry.
For some reason, I get this vibe when I see the photo, and this is obviously this is my 8 brain talking. Like, I see a person, I was like, yeah, that could probably teach me how to do math. Like, for some reason, I just get this. I get this like tutor, like kind of coach vibe. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see how that team comes together. Obviously, Daps and really Energy has had success in Counter-Strike not too long ago. We'll say within the last couple of years. Now, obviously, Counter-Strike is a pressure cooker, and things change very rapidly there. You can go from on top to irrelevant within the span of 6 months. But Energy did have some good showings. I believe they won a couple of high-profile things as well, or at least we're in that top 5, top 10 discussion, which in Counter-Strike, considering its very competitive ecosystem, is a very big deal. So we'll see what Energy brings to the table. They have some pieces in place, but like every other team in Valorant that has an incomplete roster, we have to wait and see. Let's talk about Null Penky. They've got some Turks. Is that the VAC we know? Do we know that VAC?
That is indeed the VAC we know. That is the PUBG VAC.
Oh,
yes.
There we go. So we've got and really the yeah, exactly, the best player in NPL, who appears to be from, I don't even know what country flag that is, but it doesn't matter. The title player here is CNED. This is a massive Turkish personality, a very high level player. And this is the Rainbow Coalition of flags here. I love it. We got a Swede, got some Turks in there, a Finn. Can someone tell me what that flag is quickly? Europeans? Lithuania, and then we also have another flag, Zeke. Go on, Poland. Tell me more. I'm getting a geography lesson. Go ahead.
Okay, so Zeke's flag is Polish, Vax is Lithuanian.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. There we go. So we've got a pure Euro team there. We've got all representations of Europe in there. So we'll see. I mean, I was kind of expecting a Turkish super team to emerge at some point, but with Pora going somewhere else, it looks like that is not going to be the case. So Hypoc, what you're kind of more versed in the European scenes and flags. Tell me a little bit about this team.
I mean, there's been a lot of kind of switch ups, and I think it's probably stemming from I guess if we would look back to like the Fabricant split, if you like, before Fun Plus Phoenix, before it became a thing, before Party Paris became a thing, and there was a couple of weeks of just like players getting tossed back and forth, trying with other, feeling things out. Basically, I think it's kind of been tied in with maybe the Ignition series kind of ramping down and kind of reverting back to, I don't want to say like tier 2 events, but basically not Ignition. So not the premier events, if you like, in Europe. So it's definitely the time to do it. I'll be honest, it's been a nightmare trying to keep track of what's going on, because you obviously had the change with NIP as well. There's players left, right, and center moving in Europe. So this one for me is kind of VAC and CNED are two absolutely insane players. Jesmond has really, really impressed me from what I've seen as him. So it's definitely got a very, very strong foundation. And historically, I think this team's done well. They've impressed, but the change isn't necessarily a surprise. There's been, there was a couple of underperformers, but it's like obviously they chucked out a player called Miko, I think before mandatory, and then they kind of got really, really good for another couple of weeks, and then it went back to kind of dropping maps they really shouldn't.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, every time we talk about roster moves, we always preface the discussion with like, "Oh, this looks cool. Let's see how it goes." And then we wait a couple of weeks and we're like, "Oh, yeah." So, speaking of which, we have probably the highest level of we'll see how it goes that we have in North American Valorant right now, which is the 100 Thieves team. And this is we'll see how it goes as it gets, as I should say. We have Hiko, Steel, Nitro, Dicey, and Asuna, which will I think from an on paper perspective, having not seen this team in competition yet, seems to be very promising. And it's exciting. But we also have news that they've added a coach as well, and you wouldn't know him. He goes to another school. Let's hear it from 100 Thieves.
Coach, he's been with the team for a little while. Beyond saying his name is Frost, his alias, I don't know how to explain how else. Like I know him from Counter-Strike because he worked with other orgs, crossed his path before, he's crossed Tico's path before, but most people probably wouldn't know him from behind the scenes. Not Carrie Frost Cartinian, a different Frost. Frost with an S.
Hypoc?
Well, Frost was actually working with the original signed team. So he was still kind of in the background then. I don't know if I don't know if that's like the official announcement there with that short snippet of Steel mentioning it. And I guess it hadn't really been talked about before, but Frost was working with the team since Hiko came on board. So I guess even before they signed the 4 players from High Ground. So I don't know if that's now an official kind of, previously it was a trial basis and now it's like, yeah, he's our coach. I'm not entirely sure because I don't know if I've missed something, but have they officially announced it or is it just?
They said that's what they've been working with. Maybe he's just like the I don't know. Maybe he's got some sway or he's just chilling. Now, I guess
if just quickly, if it's the guy I'm thinking about, it's the old CEO of Flipside, the gaming organization, or the owner.
Van Silly says Frost used to play with Still under Torch. So if that's the guy, then yeah. And Alchemist says he ran Flipside.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, we'll see what happens because this team has not been in competition yet. So I have high hopes. I think Steel, from a brains standpoint, you're not going to get someone who's more dedicated and laser focused on competition and strategy and just being a force for learning and he's a gamer, dude. He's gonna figure it out one way or the other. Not to mention he's bringing he said in our interview that Valorant is like 80% Counter-Strike. So if he can tune himself to that 20% difference and really get into Valorant as a game, I expect that all of these players, Nitro included, who I guess is roughly in the same boat as Steel from an onboarding perspective into Valorant full time. It's exciting to see. Not to mention Asuna and Dicey were arguably, I don't even say arguably, I would say definitively the best players on Immortals. Shout out to the rest of the Immortals rosters. I still like you guys too. But it's a good team. It's a good team. I guess on paper opinion of Hypoc, I'd like to hear it from you.
I mean, it's definitely an interesting one. I mean, if I'm Immortals, I'm not letting them walk away. But I mean, it's good. Immortals have obviously allowed them to go and do what they wanted to do. And
allowed them, and certainly didn't receive an enormous bag of cash in return.
Allowed them for a large 6-figure amount of money. No, but the good thing is obviously Steel is kind of, he's known for kind of putting together these rosters with a lot of players that have a lot of potential and then kind of achieving that potential. So I think it's good that, these are 2 young prodigies that aren't really experienced in terms of esports. I'm pretty sure this is like their highest tier of competition and they're both like 17, right? So
very young.
I think that's a really, really strong thing. And I mean, previously, any of the interviews you look at, like a lot of the rumblings from the previous 100 Thieves roster was, even with Hiko on there was kind of a lack of leadership. So having kind of Steel as even just not necessarily the team captain, but having that voice, having that kind of leadership kind of ethos within the team is going to be really, really good for two young players like that. Because I mean, I'm expecting them to kind of grow even further and improve from what they are currently, which is a terrifying prospect, to be honest with you.
Honestly,
Well,
Moses, I think that this.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you're
Go ahead.
responding to him. Go ahead. You go ahead,
Well,
Moses.
I was gonna say that, like, I've met Steel a couple of times, and we do have a good rapport. And I guess in watching and following Steel, as a fan of him as a professional player of both Counter-Strike and now Valorant, is that he seems to have turned the corner himself as well. Because I remember Steel a couple of years ago would be very outwardly frustrated and stuff like that, and would have, I wouldn't say trouble, but he definitely. He's an emotional person that definitely gets into the thought process, and sometimes it seemed that emotions would take over in some of his responses. I don't see that anymore. So I'm very excited to see how he now will take his wealth of experience and his ability and track record. For those of you who don't remember, he took Wardell, Sabrosa, himself, Freakazoid, and somebody else to like top 15 in Counter-Strike as a player who can't even play in professional matches. So, or sorry, in majors, I should say. So it's very cool to see him now have this other roster that arguably has a similar, if not higher, ceiling with Hiko, Nitro, Asuna, and Dicey. To take that team and make it into something. Hopefully 100 Thieves will not pull a shoot on this roster if things don't work out right away. But I do believe that 100 Thieves, this is their shot to really make a big splash. I also wanted to cover something from the chat. Moon Messiah says, I don't buy the 80% CS thing when one of the best players in the game came from OW. Just saying. Okay, we can't use Sinatra as an Overwatch player. He's a gamer alien who is like he's a different species. So you could give that guy a tuba and he'll get you something out of it, I'm sure. Veli, any final thoughts on the 100 Thieves roster?
So since we already spoke about this for 30 minutes already, I'm just gonna, just put the cherry on top, the whipped cream on top of your shake. So basically all I wanted to say about this roster, I was watching Immortal Minds, and shout out to DDK because that's a really fun show to listen to. Not better than this though. But still he felt like there was like an artificial ceiling because of his ban, right? I love him though. No, he feels like there was an artificial ceiling because of his ban. And so when you take a look at his roster,
no, it wasn't artificial. It was a very obvious ceiling.
It was very obvious.
You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. So the fact is, you take three players. Yeah, there's three players that can play the hell out of a video game, right? You put two young, cracked out gunners in front of them with veteran coaching. This team is made to win, in my opinion. Just ideology. And the way he still talks about the game, he's like, dude, he's still talking right now like, yo, the way I see people playing still just, no, they're not thinking outside the box. This isn't it. Okay. So I'm going to see him, Nitro, and Hiko put some crazy shit while the little cracked out youngins just dominate everybody. I have faith in this team, and I like them. I want to see what 100 Thieves are going to do with this roster.
Oh yeah, people talk about Steel, Hiko, and Nitro like Asuna is not like a top 10 player. Like he's very good.
Ridiculous. When I say the word Dicey, so whenever I hear his name, all I think about is that crazy 4K he had against Sentinels. He has ridiculous skill.
Yeah, that's like I said. I hope Immortals is now taking that money and investing it back into their organization, because they definitely got the bag on that one, I believe. So anyway, let's move on. We actually have some upcoming tournaments to cover briefly before we get into our favorite segment, at least my favorite segment. Now that I have Hypoc along, we can both talk about this one after. Let's talk about this first. We have GLX Elite coming up. This is the EU group stage week. It starts today, which is like today. I'm not sure, but they're starting soon. So this is a tournament that's happening. It's not First Strike, and I really hate to say it, I don't care about any of these teams except for maybe Big Clan.
Big Clan
again. We're waiting.
That's so mean.
I know it's mean. I'm very mean, but I want First Strike to start. Shout out to GLX series. I probably will never host your events. AW Extreme Masters. This one's more interesting to me because this features a lot of the high level Asian teams. So Japan has been like the Cinderella story of Valorant so far, in my opinion.
Yes.
And like when we were in PUBG Hypoc, like Japan was always one of those. We would see clips
the Sun
Japan,
Sister
and we'd be
days.
like, this is so hype, and then they would come into competition and would get absolutely destroyed. I don't think that's going to be the case for Valorant because it seems Absolute Jupiter in the world rankings is way up there. They've been owning. We have Vision Strikers in here. Yeah, there they are. Vision Strikers. We have C9 Korea, T1 Korea. This is a representation of all the best or most of the best Asian teams. So that is exciting because even though I've never watched a single minute of Asian Valorant, I have been watching the highlights and I've been following the teams, and it's exciting because Valorant is supposed to be this global game, and if we could actually have global parity from a skill level perspective, that would be huge. So Hypoc, how have you been following the Asian scene closely?
So there was a period where I was on some ungodly sleep schedule, and every morning on the Play Valorant Twitch channel, they would be running the whatever Asian time. Obviously, I'm assuming it was whatever Ignition series was going on at the time. And do you know what? The first day I watched it, it was actually funny you mentioned the Japanese thing from PUBG, because again, me coming from Overwatch and PUBG, obviously the Asian scene was vastly ahead.
Pretty huge.
Goes without saying. So I was like, oh, I'll watch a bit of it. And then I found myself like 2 weeks later, like binge watching it, going back and watching VODs and stuff. And there's actually a couple of rosters that are really playing with abilities, like agent compositions. And that for me is the gameplay was so far drawn away from kind of in EU, where it's very much we take random 1v1s, and if we get a pick there, we crash on the site. And, NA with when we switched up to having like a running a Phoenix and Sinatra doing just W keying into every single doorway possible. It was really, really interesting to watch the way some Asian teams play Valorant. And again, I'm a firm believer in when they pick up a game, they get pretty good at it pretty quickly. And usually they kind of set, I'll be honest, the level in terms of technical meta. I think that's applicable to both games I mentioned, Overwatch and PUBG. So yeah, I've not had a chance to keep up too much recently, but during some of the Ignition events, it was very exciting.
Veli, how do you feel about Asians?
I love Asians, man. My godmom is Asian. No, I'm playing.
Smooth.
I think the agency, the Apex scene, it's all the same, man. It's so unfortunate that the world is locked down. I mean, we spoke about this, especially with Sideshow on the show, man. Like Jupiter, that team and all these other teams, yeah, they look really cool and they dominate their scene, but they are not gonna. I haven't seen a scenario where they just become the outright best before international play starts. So it's just gonna be all about the international events. Do I think they? Huh?
You can't really compare them right now, unfortunately, which is the crappy part.
You can't.
Like,
in
a vacuum, they might be awesome, but like we saw with PUBG, like where we had or Overwatch, where these teams like dominate in their region and come into global competition, get shit on. So
I will say this though, coming out of APAC and those Asian scenes, they do come out with the sickest fucking strats that we've never seen before, and they're so sneaky and just like their imagination when it comes to that. I honestly believe it's the best, like worldwide. Like I love what they do. It's just mechanical skill and just shooting better than Americans and Europeans, which is what they have trouble with sometimes in games overall. That's what
but it's like and again, you might make the comparison early on in Overwatch. There are a couple of Korean teams that, I mean, I'm thinking back to like the Lunatic High, like the original Runaway, like rosters like that really stood out. And when you first had the opportunity to kind of, I think it was like the Apex, I'm pretty sure it was Apex Season 1, where like the original Envy Overwatch team went out there, and it was like, holy shit, these Korean teams are actually nuts. Like, and then, the first stage of the Overwatch League, there was like rosters that were, I mean, what was it seen as the London Spitfire, whatever I'll be honest, I've completely forgotten the Overwatch League team names.
Korean, if I recall.
Yeah, full Korean rosters, and then there were others that were like 4 out of 6 starters were Korean. And I'll be honest, in majority of the games, sometimes it's because, like I said, Asian teams are able to get to kind of that high level faster, and then EU and North America and other regions kind of catch up. And then I think probably past them. It's fair to say in a lot of instances. But I think that's what we're seeing now. Like they're way more experimental with the meta. They're not afraid to just like try things out in like high level competitive games. Whereas in EU and North America, a lot of it is the run of the mill. If you've watched some scrims, usually it's kind of quite puggy. I don't think teams are really messing with things at all in Western Valorant as much as they should.
I think it has to do with the stigma where like in EU and NA, when it comes to meta, like if you say something differently, like someone like me or Steel would do, everyone would say, no, you're stupid. It works this one way. And this has to go with the lack of ego that you have in those Asian countries, right? Like they're open-minded, which is what I love.
Right, and I think the teamwork aspect, and when I guess what I wonder, looking at Overwatch in comparison to Valorant, from a like there is some DNA there. Yeah, I think the reason why I'm excited for the Asian scene in Valorant is because of the success of Asian teams in Overwatch, and consider well, I would say overwhelmingly so in Overwatch, like we just talked about. With the London Spitfire being almost 100% Korean, and just the Korean scene being huge there. But it's the tactical FPS and the slowness of the game, the more cerebral approach that I think North America has more experience with. It might kind of make the difference, because Counter-Strike in Asia and Japan, not huge. This is really the first potential tactical FPS to be huge in that region, aside from like Crossfire. But you know, we just don't know how it's going to go yet. So I would love to see the global competition, wear your masks, and maybe someday we will be able to do that. We also have the Mildum Masters, which I believe is another Asian term. I'm seeing the same names and teams and whatnot here. So this looks like the group stage report from what I can tell.
Looks like it, yeah.
Indeed, very well. Things have happened,
and
we'll see what happens. there are teams. They are playing. Some are winning. Some are losing. That's what we know about the Mildum Masters right now. We also have this is my favorite segment, and I would love to talk more about that graphic we just saw, but I'm going to choose not to. We have Trovo and GLL, who have yet to have paid their people. This is a story we've been following for the last couple of weeks now. Haven't heard. This is Van Sillies in the chat. Haven't heard from Trovo Live or Global Loot / GLL Valorant in 6 days, so here's another pain point. They say that the CFO has to approve the payment to pay me in October. Didn't the CFO already sign? Hold on a second. But didn't the CFO already sign out on this budget for July, since you offered me the rate?
Dude, this tweet is that. I was gonna say that tweet, I'm pretty sure, was literally midway through a conversation. I was at. By the way, Van Silly's had a rough time, man. He's not getting paid. He doesn't get a monitor. Like it's actually kind of.
He's really he's out there like he even won a monitor and then gave it away afterwards. Like he's trying to get some good karma, and the universe is just like, no. You work in esports. You belong to me. So GLL, so, you know what? And I would normally never say this.
Say so.
Simon. Hey, your people, man. This is not a good look. Please, Johan, we've met. Like, come on, what's going on here? You know, it's like these are me and Hypoc have we were doing a GLL.
We've done a lot with
summer.
GLL.
Like, yeah. I mean, I really don't like having to say this, but it's very unfortunate to have a bunch of people that I personally like implicated in a non-payment scheme. But they also are historically horrible at paying.
It's funny, and again, yes, there is definitely an element of that, and I hate the fact that there's kind of an expectation that these things happen in our industry, because it's, I mean, again, I'm still relatively new to the world, as you know, Moses. So for me, and again, I come from a corporate finance background before I got back into esports, so like unpaid invoices is just a weird thing for me. But anyway, the worst thing about this aspect is that GLL, I think, far surpassed my expectations as a tournament organizer in PUBG, and I'm kind of disappointed that their first kind of venture into Valorant has been with such a negative kind of aftermath, because it would have been fantastic to have another tournament organizer that you could add to the mix, right? You know, if we don't know what the future looks like, but for a tournament organizer and a company to make such a I mean, piss poor entry into a new scene is really disappointing to see.
Moses, let me do something, man.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. So I announced I wanted to give money away on this show. But I pulled a Trovo. I couldn't come up with an idea on how to give it away. And since Trovo wants to fuck my friends over and that be a legitimate company that runs tournaments, everybody out there, I hope you guys don't participate in whatever the fuck they do in the future, because fuck that. Vansili's in the chat. He has been paid by them. Vansili and I, we're about the same age. I know Vansili is set right now. The $100 I plan, I'm a boomer. The $100 I plan to give out to the chat, I actually want to cut it. I want to give $50 to Simo because he's a young adult. He needs the money. We're living in a fucking pandemic. People don't want to work for free.
Yeah.
He's 17? You're not paying a 17-year-old working for you during a pandemic? Like, you should be fucking embarrassed for yourself, man. Like, I'm like furious now that I know that. I'm going to pay Simo $50, and I'm going to give $50 away to the first person in the chat right now that drops either their PayPal or Cash App, and I'm going to give out more money than Trovo has since that tournament is finished, because fuck them. And I'm going to pay Simo because he's a young kid. He's an aspiring caster. This is his dream. And to me, like, I take this personally because you don't fuck with people's dreams that they work hard for, and you promise them money, you promise them something, and you back out, you renege. You know, fuck you, and do the right thing. Okay, that's what I'm gonna say. So
I'm glad that Valley is gonna be taking care of young Simo. He's just a young lad, not even an adult yet. He's, you know, that $50 is gonna allow him to get so many goddamn Pokemon cards. And that's gonna be really
that's a lot of trading cards right there.
A lot of trading cards for old Simo. But you know what? I'll put the pin in this. Prove to me, GLL, that you are not about to go bankrupt, because that's kind of what this is kind of normally what happens before. That's kind of what I'm feeling, right? Is like they had that investment we talked about, the millions of dollars and what have you. But it kind of feels like this is the thing that happens before they're like, oh, GLL has determined that operations are no longer feasible. Goodbye forever.
Dude. Did you see the email when they were like, I don't know if this has become public, and I hate
Trovo coins or whatever.
Trovo bits, like, you got to be fucking kidding me, man.
Trovo bits? What the fuck is a Trovo bit?
Doesn't that just seems like some kind of like, and this is not an accusation, but like, doesn't that just like stink of like, oh yeah, we want to push all this money as traffic? We're pushing all this money as traffic through our website. Like, oh, we'll pay you out, but you got to pay the transaction fees and the processing fees to fucking cash out in bits, or oh my, just fucking
embarrassing.
Yeah, it is.
It sounds like a tax thing.
It is tragic.
It's a tax thing. They're trying to pull a Trump right now. They want to get by paying $700 a year, so they funnel all their money into the website, and that's how they pay people, which is bullshit. People shouldn't try to get access to fucking bits to pay their fucking bills, man. I'm sorry. I'm mad.
You know, I don't know what to say. Trovo gems into Dogecoins into potentially US dollars funneled through a shell account
somewhere in the process,
in the Caribbean,
off the coast of Panama.
And then once you actually receive the money, the FBI kicks your door and be like, "Where'd you get these gems from?"
Start selling.
So Daniel, our producer, has actually just corrected me. Simo is actually 16 years old, so that makes it worse. So we are actually have to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're talking top teams as the Spike GG has released their top 20 world rankings, and we're going to talk all about it. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back just after this. Welcome back to Valoranting. I'm joined once again by Hypoc and Veli, and now we're going to be jumping into what I wanted to call a recap, looking ahead to First Strike, but also looking backwards at the Ignition Series. There have not been any major tournaments since the conclusion of First Strike, since the completion of the Ignition Series. So since that time, we've been able to kind of simmer, and now looking at the new Spike GG top 20. There's some things to talk about. So this is the North American rankings, which is what I wanted to focus on today. We will be hitting on Europe and the other regions next week, and in the week after that as well, or maybe just Europe next week. Who knows? Either way, just North America this week around. And the top 5 is where most of the conversation happens in North American Valorant, around Sentinels, TSM, Cloud9, Envy, Gen G, and well, I guess T1, but they're way so far down the list now that they're really not getting talked about too much these days. And we also have a question mark around FaZe Clan and some of these other tier 2 teams. But I suppose the first team we have to talk about is Sentinels, and I don't think right now there's well, unless you're a super hardcore TSM fanboy, there's any argument to be made that Sentinels is not the best team in North America. They definitely had the most consistent results through the Ignition series. So Hypoc, I guess we'll start with you. Is there anything outside of TSM Reddit threads that would suggest to you that Sentinels is not the best?
No, is the short answer. And I mean, a big factor in that for me is, I mean, even though he's said otherwise, there was an operator nerf. And the real question would be, once we see things kind of kick back up again, how much of an impact that's going to have. Because I do think there's going to be a big change. Obviously, those who aren't familiar, obviously the up of the price, the weapon now feels like it weighs about 200 pounds more than it did previously. They've obviously made the changes to jump peaking, which was a big bone of contention in terms of playing against an operator. And I think now we're going to see a lot less double opping. Like there was a couple of teams that would default to kind of, once they got the bankroll, like on defense, that you just run a double op. Like, why wouldn't you? So I do think there is a big consideration to make around that. But for me, no, Sentinels, just how quickly they've developed their own kind of play style, and obviously Sinatra kind of stepping into his own. And I mean, he's the talking point of that team. Obviously, sick to an extent as well. And I mean, Shazam needs no introduction, but just how quickly they were able to hit that tempo was really, really impressive.
I agree with everything Hypoc said, and just one important reason why I believe Sentinels are outright best in NA is the fact that it's not a top-heavy team. Anybody could pop off at the end of the day, and that's what a successful team genuinely needs. And everybody on that roster is a star in their own way. So Sentinels, to me, they're number one, even with the new meta that's on board right now.
I kind of agree, and there was the funny, not the funny thing, but the interesting arc of Sentinels was at the beginning. They signed these players, Shazam and Sinatra, and I can't remember who. I think maybe it was Zoms was like their first 3. I can't really remember.
Yes, yeah.
But I think so.
The performance of the team was not great. But they were playing in everything, and we were kind of following along, watching the Sentinels, saying like, oh man, they got like a 6th place here, and they went out to this team here, and like they lost to like Together We Are Terrific here, and then over time it was like, okay, Sentinels is starting to break through into the top 5 a little bit more, and they're starting to put together 2nd place, 3rd place here. And then once the Ignition series started, after the first couple of events, Sentinels just went on a rocket ship and took over the whole thing almost immediately. So it was really exciting to see how quickly they picked it up. But I suppose my big question for basically every team in this top 5 is how are they going to adjust, and how are they going to innovate, because counter-stratting is so prevalent in the top 5 right now, which brings me to our next team, which is TSM. This is a team that I think has obviously performed well. They've always been in the discussion, but from that innovation and improvement standpoint, I wonder how much of an effect operator and potential jet changes in the future might affect this team. So we'll start with you, Veli, this time. Do you think that TSM is in danger of becoming a little bit too stagnant from a strategy standpoint? And do you think that their efforts for counter-stratting and learning other teams is going to hamper them, and maybe kind of put them in that always behind the 8 ball position?
Now, playing devil's advocate against my own point, I mean, you're going to have to, tip your hat and give credit where credit's due. TSM created a meta and a play style that really maximizes the potential and skill level that Wardell has, right? And it works. They've won so many events and they've been top 2, whatever, but still upsets are prevalent with them because of how one-sided their strategies are. And like you said, they don't counter-strat. It's either you beat our play style, or that's just it. That's the name of the game, no matter what. I think TSM is extremely top-heavy. Subrosa, Drone, and Wardell I like a lot. But at the end of the day, if one of those players don't have a significant match, that's going to be a loss. And we've seen upsets happen, even against Dignitas with Pop Flash, right? TSM worries me. And with this new meta that's out there and teams that are getting better as a whole, I'm not saying TSM is bad. I'm just saying, now that Breach and everyone else are out there, G2, they're, I saw Mixwell put out a clip talking about different ways teams attack oppers and showed what TSM was doing. And he's like, no, look at the way we do it. We use utility to get them the hell up out the way. I think TSM is going to have a struggling point. I hope that they don't, but I don't see them really battling for that number one spot right now. I think it's going to take some time. I think other teams are starting to catch up. I'm starting to like Cloud9, the prospects of Envy and other teams as well that are going to be clawing for that top 2 spot.
Hypoc, what about you?
I mean, I agree with a lot of what Veli just said. I mean, the big thing for me that stands.
So that's cool.
Well, I agree. The big thing for me is I have a hard time applying the same argument to Sentinels that I do TSM, which is when we've seen TSM struggle, it's been when Wardell's had a bad game, and I think I don't want to say the team is carried by Wardell. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying there was a much bigger emphasis around the operator usage for TSM than there ever was for Sentinels. I also think to an extent, TSM in the series, we've seen them really go up against Sentinels and kind of go round for round with them was kind of direct anti-stratting, as opposed to being able to adapt on the fly and utilize one part of the map or get a pick on one lane. And Haven is one that always stands out to me, is how quickly Sentinels are able to flip up and make an audible call and isolate, and you really capitalize off a pick, whether that be the operator, whether that be Sonato, whether it be any form of entry into a site. I think in that way, that's the one thing that stands out for me. TSM were able to anti-strat Sentinels very well, but even in other series against other teams, that aspect isn't there. So it's almost like they directly try and counter Sentinels instead of being ready for, anything, having kind of like a reactionary call to something going on the map.
I feel that TSM is a very talented team, but I am genuinely concerned for their longevity, in the sense that let's say Jet takes a nerf and Wardell is then forced for some reason to play another agent, and they don't have that same mobility on their op, which is already reduced in its mobility now, or if agent bans come into the meta at some point, I just wonder how many of these, and I say this in the most respectful terms I can, like old dogs from CS are going to be able to move and be agile in a meta that might start changing rapidly often. And that's a concern. But if on the other side, you have a guy in Sinatra who lived his entire life in a meta that changed all the time, and agents would change and maps would change, and you'd have to, your new mains, you'd have to be min-maxing constantly, and that's why so many people burnt out on Overwatch. So I first of all, I hope that that Riot doesn't take that same feverish approach in changing the game all the time, which I don't think they're going to. But I have much more faith in someone like Sinatra to be able to adapt and change his playstyle depending on where the meta is going, versus a Wardell, a Sabrosa, a Drone. If something drastic happens to the meta, I don't know how quickly TSM would be able to react.
I agree.
So let's take a look at our next team in this list is Cloud9. Cloud9 to me is still a question mark. I think the third place ranking is perfect for them. They are definitely on the bubble and are capable of winning tournaments. But from a consistency standpoint, I would really, I think I need to see more before I pass any level of judgment on these guys because of the tens factor. Like I think if you're going to talk about pure talent, pure game-changing ability, there is nobody in North American Valorant as strong as Tens is, and every other pro points to him as this like killer robot that just cannot be stopped a lot of the time. Even and I think Shazam put it best, is like, even when you know what he's going to do, he still does it to you, which to me sounds like what would like a Michael Jordan-esque skill, where he's gonna be like, I'm gonna do exactly this, and you're gonna watch me. And they're like, no, okay, all right, fair enough. And then that's what happened. So Cloud9 with Tens is like an incredibly volatile and difficult team to deal with. If you extract Tens out of that equation, Hypoc, what is Cloud9?
I mean, it's a shame because if you remove tens from the equation, I feel like that C9 roster kind of, when they were signing one by one, and they'd add somebody, and then they'd have a couple of weeks of improvement, and now that we've kind of got that kind of 5 locked, they sort of plateaued. I think again, I think it's kind of similar to TSM in a way where a lot of it was based around tens playing Jet, right? Or tens doing something that tens would do in a round, and that wins them the round. But then the thing with tens is he'll do that 10 rounds in one map. So it's kind of weird. I still don't think they have a well-rounded roster, even though they've shown some glimmers of hope. It's the consistency that's there for me, and that's what I think is plateaued. There's much less of an occurrence now of tens popping off because there are teams that directly just will try and shut him down. He becomes that key factor.
And I think that one other benefit that C9 has is that because tens is just like a magnet for attention, and we've heard VODs of teams talking about how afraid, not like them personally, but like C9 comms saying like they're afraid of you, and you can see it sometimes in the body language of plays that people don't want to go after tens in aggressive ways on one-on-ones or clutch situations because it's a mental factor because he's just so good. And I just wanted to underline the fact that even though my question was to extract tens, it doesn't mean that the rest of the team is bad by any stretch. I know that like Relics has been playing well. Even Vice has had moments. I guess I just question in the same regard, will C9 be able to be agile with meta changes? What do they look like? What maybe they haven't met their or have not received their patch yet, like whatever might make them more powerful. I don't really know where C9 is going to go yet, and this is another team that's just kind of, we need to see a little bit more from them in the next wave of competition. But I do believe, and this is only from a dollars or on paper moves. I think that C9 from a roster perspective, they're all great dudes. But will they be able to catapult themselves into a number 1 or number 2 spot consistently? If for some reason they don't have the same output that they might have week in, week out like Sentinels does. Belly.
Okay, Moses. So you said, and I know you didn't mean it this way to shit on them, but when you said, okay, you take tens off the team, what do you have? I look at Cloud9 and TSM kind of the same way. The only difference is everyone on TSM plays more around Wardell's playstyle. Their gameplay is around Wardell's op, right? But tens, sometimes you see them on Reyna popping off, and that's the biggest difference in my opinion, because of the fact that Wardell. Exactly, and the fact that if Wardell has a bad game, you're still going to get Sub Roger and Drone that does their thing consistently.
Yes.
Now you take a look at Cloud9. I think Mitch is really good, but sometimes Mitch drops the turret like he did in the finals for Pop Flash. I think Shinobi had a really bad day as well, and that's a level of consistency that's opposite of what you really want from teammates. So it's not if you take tens or Wardell off this team, what are they? It's more of, how can we get this team to play more together as a team? Because that's kind of like saying, what are the Lakers without Kobe? What's the Cavs without LeBron? I mean, obviously those teams are going to be shit, but they still make it to the end for a reason. Now, they need to really look at that reason, remix it, and just make it a little bit better. Because, once you become one-sided and tens is running around with Reyna, stacking up kills, that's not going to help the team. That's going to help his kill-death ratio. So, figure it out.
I don't think that Cloud9 is a bad team without tens. I do believe. And
I know you didn't mean that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess what the point is that tens is such like there, and I use this term very very rarely, but he is such a Chad when it comes to Valorant, like in all respects. Like he I think he kind of single-handedly created the Jet Judge meta in like one tournament. And it was like, this is what I'm doing now. I'm floating through doorways, blasting your face with a judge, and that's just what you're gonna have to deal with. And I can't remember who they were playing against, but they were like, "What the fuck are we supposed to do with this? Like, what is this?" Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things where he can just do whatever and be great at it. So I'm excited to see how Cloud9 may evolve. But they are one of my question mark teams to say like, what's going to happen if the meta changes up significantly, agent bans come in, that kind of thing.
This is the interesting thing, because it's so early on in kind of esports when they start establishing themselves, and like we get like the meta and how that varies region to region. I think now it comes to the point, and I don't actually know, somebody can correct me, I'm sure chat will correct me if somebody knows, but this is the point where you need a coach to sit down and individually explore different things, say, actually, yeah, Tens, let's fuck around with you playing like Reyna on particular, against particular teams where they have problems, and whatever. That aspect that a coach will bring to a set of players like this, I think, is where you will realize what level they can operate at. Because I think the foundation is there, but it's like I said, they plateaued quite quickly once that 5 was locked in.
Right.
And like I said, they've had weeks of success, and somebody just put it in chat. The honeymoon period ended. I think that's the best way to describe it. Is as soon as they got that 5th locked in, it was like, this is the level we're at, and we might go up and down a little bit. But other teams, exactly. Other teams are kind of, they would start like ramping up at that point once the 5's locked in, and the more time they play together, the better they get.
Yeah, too comfortable.
Yeah, and I guess this is where we start to look to tier 2 teams to start filling in those potential gaps, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But let's talk about our last team here, which is Gen G in the. Oh, did we skip Envy? Do we have Envy on here? I feel like we were going to talk about Envy, but we're. Oh yeah, well Envy. Oh right, we have Envy. Envy is in like a special category for roster reasons. So let's talk about Gen G. This is a team that I think is, again, exactly where they should be. They have had flashes, but they are certainly I think they're at maximum output right now for the roster they have. And I really like this roster because they know exactly who they are. They have the ability to go on runs. They play at a high level from a team play perspective. I believe, I imagine that their camaraderie inside the team is probably very solid. You never hear anything sour about Gen G. They're active on Twitter. They don't really tilt, but they don't have that superstar caliber player outside of like maybe one player popping off in the game now and again. But they don't have a Tens. They don't have a Sinatra. They don't have a Wardell. But they do have time in the lab with this roster for a very long time. I think that they are in a great position. But if Gen G wants them to progress past the or to try and break into the top 3 discussion, I don't say a roster change is necessary, but something needs to change. Hypoc, give me your opinion.
Yeah, again, I think this comes down to a very similar scenario where they need to be able to develop alongside the meta. Back when we look at, the Brimstone Jet meta, if you want to call it, like prior to the op becoming such a heavy reliance on some teams, back when we had Michael on Brimstone, I think is where we saw Gen G kind of hit a level that was really impressive early on. And maybe that was kind of, and it happens in other esports, Overwatch in particular, like, say, for example, Genji gets nerfed, or like Tracer gets nerfed, or something like that, where you go back to whatever meta it is. There are some teams that just slip slightly from where they were previously. I think that's kind of true for Gen G. I don't think they've completely dropped off the face of the earth, but I also don't think they are performing as well in a different meta that is much easier punishable on teams that aren't able to adapt to it. They're also one of the slower moving teams, which I think in this current meta is, when you have people like Sonata that can walk in and pick up a 3K, you can't rotate and stop that. Like, so if you're not quick on the fly, gaining early information on defense, things like we see G2 do, they'll send 3 people down B long on bind on defense, and then they get no contact. The one guy keeps pushing. They all go stack A. Things like that. You don't really get Gen G kind of capitalizing on things like that early enough. They play very deep on sites, and by the time they lose one, it's like, okay, well, now you're in a 4v5 retake against most good teams. You don't win those rounds.
Absolutely. Veli, thoughts on Gen G from what you've seen?
Something small. You said they don't have a superstar. And I know I said something extremely stupid on the show because I was multitasking. My words got mixed up. But there's one pattern I see with this team at all times. Whenever they have extremely good games, Win is on top. And, you know, when he's not on top, they have really bad games. And it goes to saying that, you know, they need a superstar. I think Win has a great amount of talent. I don't know if it's this team really figuring themselves out. You guys know me. I'm the guy that's always going to say, yeah, this team needs a team change. This team, you know, they suck. They're not getting better. I think this team is in an okay spot. I think they're in the spot where they just need to figure it out. And once they figure it out and fix those inconsistencies, because when you look at their games, especially their stat lines, you're like, okay, something's not right now. This isn't the team that we really know. I think they'll start to get better. I don't think they're on a downward spiral at all. So
no,
hopefully, you know, maybe they go back to the drawing lab. What the hell happened?
They just don't really, like, they're fifth. They're a fifth place team, and that's where they are. Like they're locked in there. Because if can we pull up the list again? Yeah. So if you look below them, there's nobody on this list, and I say nobody we'll talk about maybe Immortals.
Yeah, well, Immortals now with the changes, I think they're probably over a couple of spots, but Dignitas the same. They're kind of, I don't want to say back to the drawing board, but the two I'd mentioned would be...
Here comes the venerated fanboy. Just wait. Here we go.
Excuse me. I was just going to have I need absolute silence. The Luminosity change is... no, it does really excite me. And do you know what? It's for a different reason, because I think a Proto is one of the most exciting players right now in North America in terms of, I think, stepping up and being a hot player to watch. I think he's going to do magic for LG. Obviously, the addition of Venerated insane. I think it's fair to say that he was probably the most respected member of that old 100 Thieves High Ground roster, especially of the ones that were dropped. But now with Venerated in that roster, I think Venerated and a Proto are two players that can really, really carry that team forwards.
Proto, oh my God, he's so good, yo. I'm gonna be honest. I think LG, when First Strike happens, LG is gonna be in the mix, and I'm gonna say it here. I think they're a top 6 team, and the fact that
I have to check something really quick. Does a Proto have an anime avatar? No, he's got throwback Rugrats avatar.
Really?
That's very powerful. Very powerful.
No
anime avatar.
Amazing.
Excellent. I'm excited for LG as well. We're going to talk about them in just a minute here, but that kind of brings us out of the top teams that actually have complete rosters. So we talked about how many? 1, 2, 3, 4 teams, because everybody else is in various stages of shambles. Maybe not shambles, but not disarray. They're incomplete, whatever you want to call it. Dignitas. Well, actually, before we jump into the total discussion, let's just call it what it is there's a big old looming cloud called match fixing hanging over everything right now.
Really? I hadn't heard. I hadn't heard.
Yeah, you hadn't heard. Yes. So I know that we're in the perpetual state of internet rage blue balls right now as we wait for the ESIC to hand down the list of players that will never be seen again.
The naughty list.
The naughty list, as Poised and Shanks were removed from. We're gonna say, Shanks' trial ended, and they decided not to sign him, and they mutually agreed to release.
Conveniently,
Poised.
Yeah.
They mutually agreed to release.
We mutually agreed to not out you before the report comes out. Is basically what
exactly.
That says,
we have decided that for no specific reason, even though that you had a good performance, and we brought you onto the roster 45 minutes ago, to release you. So we are confident that he'll find success wherever he goes, as long as it's not in Counter-Strike or Valorant potentially. Now, I don't want to try and say that these guys are guilty before the report comes out, but it kind of feels very, very close. So Veli, I understand you have something you want to say.
I'm not saying that he's in some shit, but I'm just saying, is one of his last games, he dropped a 30 bomb against Envy. He fucked them up. And now he's not on the team anymore. You don't drop 30 bombs and then get replaced on your team. So speculate all you want.
I mean, dropping 30 bombs, maybe win trading with the players on Envy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no doubt. So I mean, that's the big issue with integrity. I'm going to say crimes here because it just sounds cool. Integrity crimes. It's you can't come back from it. Like once, like ask Steele, ask Brax. You know,
well,
like and Brax. Go ahead, Hypoc.
It's really much you said. Did you see the Brax tweet? I have never, like, there's very few tweets from esports personalities that I actually go, holy shit, that's actually fucking, that's real as fuck. Because
it hurts. It hurts to read that.
Yeah, who the fuck looks at Brax's story, Steele's story, and just goes, do you know what? I'm gonna make a couple of, and then call it $5 grand, 10 grand. Yeah.
Like it just
it blows my mind. It really does.
The balls on this man over here. Like, come on. Like, I mean, how? Like, okay, so this is, we're assuming. I'm not going to name any names, but let's just say it's all true. And there's, let's just say it's all true, and this is all a match fixing thing, and everybody's guilty, and doom and gloom and fire from the sky, and all that shit happens. You're right. I mean, Brax is like, I look at the whole Brax story because he was a child when that whole thing went down. Like, he was a child. So to have, like, I very faintly remember being 17, and most of it was like, all you think of is how are you going to like, what is your life going to be? And when you're 17 and you have a prospect like Swag had or Brax had back in the day, where he was the next guy, whatever it might have been, and who knows where he would have gone, but it's the story untold that haunts you forever. Like, what if I had done this one thing differently? Where would I have been, and where would I be now? And to have that with all these other young players, especially in a new game where they were already unable to reach the top of Counter-Strike, at least in the effort that they put in to make it. So if that follows them from Counter-Strike now to Valorant, they have nowhere to go. You can't go back to Counter-Strike because that's where you fucked up, and you can't keep playing Valorant because everyone knows you're a cheater. So what happens to you? Like, okay, well, fuck, I guess I'll see you in the next one. Like, it follows them forever.
So here's the question I had, and I absolutely get it. Don't for 1 second think I'm saying, orgs should overlook this because it's in a different game, because in my eyes, I think something like that should stick with you. It's
thank you.
It's for me. It's deplorable. It is deplorable for me.
Almost easier to get away from an aimbot or like a straight up VAC ban than it is match fixing. Because
I mean, dude, there are people competing in Valorant now that have VAC bans and have been banned from CS:GO. I mean,
the big story is simple. Well, one of the best players in the world, he had a VAC ban, and it was for cheating, and he was like, "I cheated, yeah, I did," and then now I'm not.
The thing that gets me is like, where do we go further down the line? Like, the orgs not pick up players like that because potentially they might get a betting sponsor, or are they not picking them up because they just don't want the PR stigma attached to having. And I absolutely agree. It should be applied to that player. That player should have to deal with the consequences of that. And if that means not getting another job in esports, so be it. In my eyes,
these are people's jobs. Cheating people over, man. Like
as we know in esports, there are some organizations that will do anything to have a presence in a high-profile game like Valorant. So, do we see Shanks get picked up? And I don't want to say, but like a bedroom org or like a shady org, but do you ever think there's an organization that says, we'll take you because you are that talented? Because I think Shanks is a player that, I mean, he's fucking insane. I think out of the people that are currently affected, he's probably the most talented one that's going to potentially lose out, unless something else comes out that we don't know about and it affects another player. I think he's the one instance, I think. I mean, can you guys see him getting picked up by an org that maybe just doesn't care about that?
I don't, maybe, probably. And there's nothing that, like, I don't think, and this is something we talked about, I don't believe Riot is going to come out and outright sanction these players because of it didn't happen on their turf. So
there would be no reason
and I don't believe Riot should, honestly, because it didn't happen on their turf. It's not really their problem that they've made this mistake in the past, and there's no real evidence or way to prove they've done anything in their particular game. So from even from a legal end user license agreement standpoint, they haven't really done anything yet to warrant a ban from competition. But it's the court of public opinion which will haunt them forever.
Yes.
Because even Steele, even Brax, Those guys hear about match fixing 5+ years later, 6+ years later. They just keep hearing about it. It always comes up. And especially something this egregious, well, potentially egregious, and wide ranging as this whole match fixing scandal. They said they had what, like 17 or 20 names on this list that was pending, or 35, or some high number. And if it's all these dudes who, and I think of the human element, and this is not really where I wanted this segment to go, but we'll keep talking about it in a minute. The human element is that these guys were at a level at Counter-Strike where they couldn't quite get any higher. And they have to maintain this lifestyle of, I want to be a professional gamer, and I have these societal pressures. Maybe my parents want me to go to college. Maybe, you know, I'm not as successful as some of my other friends. Whatever. How am I going to stay relevant? How am I going to keep paying the bills? And how am I going to, just progress this lifestyle? Well, maybe I'll do this because it's possible. And maybe the move to Valorant, and this is what happens when you're young and you make these mistakes. You don't look far, you don't look down the road. Like, what is this decision today going to mean for me tomorrow, or a week from now, or a month from now? And for teams like Dignitas, Envy, I think that is right around the corner, and it's probably a very, very difficult feeling to be sitting there waiting for the knife to drop. But I think we've kind of covered that. So I guess we'll roll Envy into this discussion, because they also, after like signing their roster like 2 or 3 months ago, before the end of the Ignition series, had Akis and Calypso on this roster, and they immediately, well, not immediately, but very quickly moved to remove them, to bring in Crashies and Food, which I guess you have to ask yourself, what would necessitate a player like Calypso and Akis, like both players that had decent performances, and were playing with a team that was together since beta. Why would you then remove one of these players from the roster and bring in somebody else who leaks team comms via Steam? Hypoc, we'll start with you.
I mean, the leaked T1 screenshots. You don't see it, the Steam conversations.
Yeah.
Again, that for me,
that's the mistake they made instead of match fixing.
Yeah, that for me, and again, it sounds bad, but I think in 6 months' time and a twit longer later, people aren't really going to be still talking about that time a Steam chat screenshot was there. Exactly. I think because it was fresh. Yeah, because it was fresh, people are going to want to say, you're a piece of shit, and maybe, you know, Skadoodle fans are pissed off because it affects him, right? So
yeah, but it's in the scheme of things, compared to match fixing, it's like you've taken a candy bar versus robbing a bank. It's like,
exactly. I mean, to talk about the roster move itself, I actually think there's probably better lifetime for this roster with Food and Crashies on it, even though you could argue T1 has underperformed and they've disappointed. I don't want to say underperformed, they have been disappointing. I do think maybe they're a better fit with Envy than they were with that T1 roster. And that's not to say Akis and Calypso were bad. I'm just saying maybe age is a factor there for sure. I mean, it is in esports. So in that regard, I don't want to say it's an upgrade, but I definitely think they are better suited on Envy than they were on T1.
I personally believe that the original T1 roster and the current 100 Thieves roster have very similar compositions. I mean, not obviously we have the iBuy Power connection there with Steel, AZK, and Brax. But I mean, they have like the veteran Counter-Strike presence with the young gun new talent. And I believe that the 100 Thieves roster has kind of taken what T1 did from a makeup perspective and improved upon it. Because if you hold those two teams up together, I don't believe, and I've talked about this a lot with Skadoodle, and to an extent Brax, that the competitive fire there for Skadoodle is a bit of a question mark. And I don't want to go down this road again because I've talked it to death. But I wonder about a team like Envy picking up these two players that just didn't have a good fit on that T1 team. There was a shitload of pressure. They had that whole thing. Yeah. It was just a doomed. It was not doomed, but there was a very high chance for that team to potentially fail. based on the expectations of AZK, Brax, and Skadoodle just by themselves, and then you take two young players and plunk them down into that equation and say perform at the highest level immediately. That is just something like a mind fuck.
Yeah.
So I think that now, and we'll talk about T1 here in just a second because
he's gone.
He's gone.
He's gone.
Okay.
Okay, he's back.
So the old back button got me there. So I want to quickly touch on Immortals in this kind of same vein because I think T1 has its own discussion point. So let's wait on T1 for a minute. So Immortals is they cashed in their chips, and those two chips were Asuna and Dicey. You have to assume they got a transfer fee of some kind for this because there's no fucking way you're letting go of Asuna without it. And the same with Dicey. So they say thank you for at least giving us the opportunity to continue to invest in Valorant. And really Immortals did a great job. I mean, this is kind of where sometimes you get the best of both worlds, where you have the ability to bring up a couple of players, show their value, and then trade them for money. So that's always good. I mean, this is sometimes how orgs make money in Valorant or any other esport. I'm sure I'm sure Scott could speak to that in the same vein, that this is kind of a topic that we've brought up on this show in the past. So Immortals, I mean, I guess this is kind of the end of the topic for them, really, but I don't know where they go from here. But Asuna and Dicey were great, and they will really, really, really improve that on these roster.
They will indeed. The one thing to say is there isn't another Asuna and Dicey out there right now. No. There really isn't. In terms of filling those two spots now on Immortals, there isn't two players like that out there.
Right. Yeah. Veli, thoughts on Immortals?
Literally, there's really nothing else to say. Like, good luck. The tier 2 scene, I mean, unless you want to snatch people from these orgless teams, I mean, you're pretty much shit out of luck. You're gonna really have to look hard because First Strike is coming soon. So good luck. I'm a big Dicey fan, so replacing him and Asuna is gonna be ridiculous.
Very difficult. Guess who benefits? Yeah. Oh, 100 Thieves. We've been talking about them over the last couple of weeks, and obviously we'll show this graphic one more time. There they all are. Hiko, Steel, Nitro, Asuna, and Dicey. On paper, tremendous roster. In practice, question marks. We'll see. And really, it looks great, but we have to wait. So that's all we can say. Let's now talk about T1. This is a team in reference. Before we pull up the graphics, Daniel, let's just see it quickly again where they are in the global or the North American rankings, I should say. They are all the way down in 14th place, which, believe me, that is not where anybody on T1 or anywhere else in Valorant in the run up expected them to be. And realistically, that is exactly where they should be. The team is totally f***ed. So totally. So let's talk about the team announcement as it came out first. And that's Skadoodle. That was the big signing. Skadoodle getting made 5. So the original roster of Skadoodle, AZK, Brax, Food, and Crashies did not work out. They had some early, very extremely early success that allowed them to flirt with that #1 overall spot. But this was in like Twitch Rivals was one of them where they didn't even have their complete 5. And then
it was super early on as well.
Like extremely, like April, May, there was some question marks about T1 being the best. But as soon as regular competition started, outside of the T1 Invitational, where they came in 2nd place, I believe, to TSM, it was all it just fell apart. And a lot of that had to do with just their team chemistry. They really weren't an innovative team. They didn't really push on any of the synergies. It was just like, we're gonna out aim everybody, and we're just gonna play CS, and it just straight up did not work for them. I don't believe that Skadoodle's skill set translated very well. And whatever you want to say about T1, we've already talked it to death. But they fell apart. And my big thing with T1 is I question the competitive fire for Skadoodle. Braxton's ability to translate his skills into Valorant, even though he's a tremendously skilled player. AZK, you know, he moved to Overwatch. He's a very flexible player. Whatever it was, whatever in the alphabet soup, it just they didn't get a full set of letters in there. I don't know what it was. I don't know where T1 goes from here, because now their roster, they don't have anyone new on their roster, right? They have that EEIU dude. I don't know if that's a player or a coach or EU. But I don't know. I don't know what's happening with this team. Skadoodle is still in the lab running on a treadmill with a bunch of like diodes on him or something like that. But like, I don't know what's going to go on with T1. Who knows? Hypoc, what is your kind of diagnosis of this team?
I think these guys, and coming into the scene that early with such a high profile signing in the form of Brax, the bar was just set way too high for these guys. And again, the bar being set that high and then signing the names they did, talking Skadoodle, obviously AZK, that almost kind of solidified that line, made it 4 times thicker. And I think they've become a victim to that because they've been slapped about in fashion that we haven't seen, like some of the tiered. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the answer for this roster is, because the back to the drawing board thing, I would apply the same logic that I do to Immortals now. Like, who do they pick up? Like, there isn't just left? I mean, when you talk about the NRG, and from what I've heard of who's currently scrimming with NRG, we look at who T1 could possibly sign, and it's just like, I mean, it's a flaccid prospect. That's the only word I can give to it, to be honest.
I like that. Honestly, I don't think it matters. Right. It really doesn't matter who they sign as long as it works. I feel like the biggest problem with this roster, and it happened from the jump, was the fact that there was no direction. There was no direction. It was literally T1 pulling out to the table. You know, it was a brand new party. What's up?
I don't know if it was. I don't know if I think that they had the unfortunate circumstances of being the first ones in the pool with a super team.
But no direction. No. That doesn't matter, because you can be the first team in the game with a super team. Like, I'm not going to be mad at you for that, even though I don't think that was the best play. But it's the fact that, okay, you come in here and then you half-assed it all the way because you have this lineup full of superstars that aren't proven on this game yet. That's the issue. And that was something that I harped on week in and week out on Valoranting is direction. And the fact that the whole Skadoodle thing happened as well, that there's no leadership that really took control of that. So leadership and direction was what they needed. And the leadership brings direction. So they go hand in hand. You know, they correlate with each other. I just think that's the biggest problem. I really don't care. They could pick up Billy Bob and Scuba Steve tomorrow, and I will applaud the fuck out of that, as long as they have a plan set in place to incorporate their play styles with the team to be successful, because that has been it. You don't sign a team that fucking famous and you don't have them in these weekly tournaments like TSM and everyone else. And guess what?
Yeah.
TSM and everyone else that played those little 10K tournaments and all that.
Out.
Yeah, they didn't play.
They're at the top
now. Playing.
They're relevant now.
We
talked that to death, but I'm saying, but that's leadership and direction. Don't let friends.
I'm about to talk it further to death. When I say that is like it's not they didn't play in any tournaments, and they just continue to be like, we don't slum it like that. We're gonna trot out our Ferrari when we decide to, and then they did, and then it would explode as soon as they try to turn the engine over. So it's like it was not good, and really I guess now we have the benefit of retrospect, having the team come together as it did before things really solidified in the scene. They moved too quickly. Like, they could have had this team out there scrimming and playing and winning things with like Brax, Skadoodle, AZK on the roster, but bringing Food and Crashies in, they were immediately, considering the fan bases of Skadoodle, AZK, and Brax, are always going to be the ones that get shit on the most, or would have been the ones that get shit on the most. Food had a bad game, cut him from the team. Brax doesn't deserve to be playing with a player like this. Food has a bad game, cut him. Skadoodle, they need better teammates if they ever want to compete. Meanwhile, Skadoodle is like a turret with an op, like not moving anywhere, like they didn't have the dynamics of a team that was learning the game. They were just like, we got this, we're going to be the best, don't worry about it. And then they were just like, oh, wait a second, a bit of adversity, blow the team up. And it was just like, there was the addition of fraud,
Just on that, and the thing I always go back to is like the whole time they weren't playing some of those tier 2 events, the nerd streets, the whatever it was, like that was when the meta got solidified. And if you think about like back then in the early days, we had Skadoodle running an operator as Sage when everybody else was just like, holy shit, guys, you can abuse the fuck out of this gun with Jet. And what did T1 not have? They didn't have a fucking Jet popping off with an operator. Like,
had a Sage fucking up.
They literally showed up 6 weeks later and they were like, oh my god, like how is this working? They just, wait a minute. They literally didn't know how to counter that. And it was I guess it was just this light bulb moment where they're just like, oh yeah, maybe we should have paid a bit more attention over the last 6 weeks.
It feels like they didn't take it seriously.
Like this
yeah, it feels like they didn't take it seriously, and obviously the whole leaked Steam chat convo thing was just not the last straw. But if I'm Food and Crashies,
it was a straw.
It's a split down the middle. You have these three guys over here. These are our show ponies, and then we have you guys who are over here.
Yeah. Remember, it wasn't them that said it. It was a friend that said it about their teammates, and they were just laughing.
Oh yeah, no, it was totally inconfident. We've been through this. Don't fucking talk about team comm strategy problems on Steam chat with your pals. What do you think's gonna happen? We live in a clout chasing age, and there's nothing more clout voucher worthy. I don't know how you fucking translate actions into clout.
You're trying.
What like a clout coupon of some kind than a screenshot of a high profile player talking shit about another high profile player. Anyway, let's move on to FaZe Clan. This kind of tangentially connects to the match fixing question mark, specifically around Marved, who is, I mean, this team had, this team was good.
They had potential, man.
Yeah, this team was great. I like this team. Corey, Zachary, Marved, all those dudes, Def and Psalm, I believe. That was probably the best that FaZe Clan got until they then kind of rewound a little bit. Psalm and Def went elsewhere, and then they brought in Corey, Zachary, Marv, Baby Bay, and Raucus. This is essentially an Overwatch team with a Counter-Strike player on it. Corey, very good player. Zachary, we just haven't seen enough of this team. But they just never had a chance because all the tournaments stopped like right when they signed their last player. So like they're just kind of sitting on a shelf somewhere waiting to be tested again. So this is a team that I think has expectations, but not nearly as high as T1 had expectations. But this is a squad that is just kind of like a big old question mark right now because we haven't had very many opportunities to see them yet. Hypoc, I imagine you've crossed paths with some of these players in the past. What do you think of the FaZe roster as it is?
I think it's, do you know what? I was impressed, and that's probably because I do know these guys from Overwatch. Again, played against them in rank for God knows how many seasons, but I was impressed when I saw them transition as easily as they did to Valorant. Again, I think it's a very unfortunate timing, and FaZe is one of the ones that I kind of question why have we not seen them playing all of these like tier 2 events in North America? Because I don't think they immediately slotted into the question for tier 1 team in North America. So whether or not the Marved situation has had an impact on that, I was a little disappointed to not see them jump into like the weeklies and still be doing like the 10Ks that have happened since. I mean, the FaZe Ignition Series was the last thing we had in NA, right? Well, I'm forgetting something.
No, the Pop Flash.
Pop Flash. Yes, they weren't in Pop Flash, but the last Ignition Series they did was their own, the Invitational, right? They didn't do anything after it.
The FaZe, they did their own.
No, they played in it, and I think they went out in groups or early playoffs.
Either groups or stage 1 of playoffs. But anyway, my real question is why we haven't seen them grinding out this tier 2 stuff, because I don't think they slot into the tier 1 bracket in North America. So that was my only real disappointment. I have no doubt that they will find some form. I don't really put them in the top 5 question. I think maybe just outside that. If we were to say Gen G right now is the standard where we draw the line of top 5 potential, I think there's a couple of others that could slot into that. I don't think FaZe is one of them right now.
Yeah, FaZe went out in the quarterfinals.
Right, round 1, right?
round
So that's
one.
round one
They
of
went on the
playoffs,
lower
yeah,
final against Cloud9, right? So that was kind of the last time we saw them. So again, big question mark there. Where will we see them again? Oh yeah, they have that. Yeah, they've played in 2 total tournaments as a team, and one of the T1 NSG tournament was with a completely different roster. So
yeah.
Tournament played in.
What's that?
I said that's as many tournaments as T1 played in. I said a stupid joke.
Well, they played in more, but they I think they had like not a lot more. Like that was something we talked about a shitload in the early days. Was that T1 just did not play, and we've learned. I hope they learned their lesson. So that kind of brings us to generally the end. So I guess this is all kind of coming to a head where we are looking forward to First Strike, which is now mere weeks away. And I think that the stage has been set. I think there's some good storylines, but for the love of God, can we start this thing already? I need some goddamn Valorant in my veins, man. It's been too long. So yeah, we also have some question marks like by the way, Oceania is on here as well. So well, they're not on this graphic, but they are involved, and there's guaranteed at least 3 to 5 players that are good in that entire region. But
at least
well, I can't wait to see them getting plucked out of Australia to go to North American teams.
Absolutely.
So Hypoc, I guess I'll start with you. What are you looking forward to? What do you think First Strike is going to be like? Is it going to be more of the same, or is it going to be a shakeup over the break? And I guess I'll ask you this: what do you think these teams have been doing in the meantime? Scrimming their faces off, or
I mean, like I said, EU's been a little hard to keep track of. I know G2 have just got back from a boot camp, so that's the kind of thing that's really reassuring to see. But that's no real surprise with G2, obviously the kings of Europe right now. Like I said, there's a couple of teams that maybe have used this opportunity, and I think there may be a couple of roster shuffles that have been considered over the last few weeks for some of these other teams that we've talked about that haven't made change-ups. But I think a lot of teams have maybe just gone back to the drawing board and said, right, let's kind of look at playing around with the meta, becoming a bit more diverse in terms of agent compositions. But overall, it's been disappointing to see that there's still some events going on with what you would consider high tier 2 teams, and we haven't seen some of the tier 1 teams that haven't made changes playing in those. So it's going to be a real eye opener, I think, to hop back into First Strike. I mean, the 2 teams I'm most excited to see are obviously TSM and Sentinels. Like that's a given, really.
Really? I'm excited to see 100 Thieves, bro.
Man.
I'm excited to see it, but I don't think it's a fair test to say. I mean, at the same time, it's like, were we excited to see the other 100 Thieves roster after a month of Hiko having no internet and whatnot? We weren't really, right? Okay, we were hyped about the signing, and then
if you become if we have you back on the show, we'll talk all about how they did our boys dirty with the 100 Thieves
the announcement
and all that other shit. God damn it!
I mean, that's a different world together. But honestly, I'm not excited to see their first appearance because I think that it's an upgrade. I think it's fair to say that they're going to outperform the previous roster.
You're not excited at all to see Sentinels and 100 Thieves in like some group stage.
Come on, man!
I'm more excited to see Sentinels versus TSM.
You have a joyless life. What is going on here? You have no.
Dude, all I'm telling you right now is the Twitter beef between Sentinels and TSM is the best content we have.
They just fucking hate each other. It's not even a beef anymore. It's not even
exactly.
You just know that they hate each other.
Exactly. So I want to see them play as many times as possible. Like,
I actually my biggest thing with that whole rivalry is like I don't know what side to choose because like every once in a while. Like
you don't
I'll
pick
talk
a
to
side.
Wardell,
or
I'll see something where I'm like, oh, okay, well he's kind of he's being a little bit mean there. I'm not sure about that. And then you'll hear Shazam like talking, and I'll be like, I could see how that person would annoy me over time. And then you're just like, and I'm not trying to like say that either of these dudes have any negative personality traits at all. I'm sure they do, but like I don't have any commentary on it. I just watch, so I don't have no skin in the game. But like I'm trying to figure out like. Maybe it's like if they both actually hate each other and what the reasons are. I personally like a fretting Instagram mom want to know whose side to choose and what flag to wave. So maybe Valley, what do you think?
Honestly, I don't give a shit about that. I'm gonna be honest. The biggest battle I really want to see has to be in Europe for First Strike. And no one's talking about this. And I've been saying it for so long, and this shit has been happening. I said once FPX got picked up, Liquid is gonna drop out of top 2. Liquid dropped out of top 2, and then they started getting beat out in groups. Now with First Strike coming, all these new names, you might not think, but I think all these new names are coming up now, and you have FPX, you have G2 dominating, so that's my top 2. That's the top 2, and then the question is Liquid going to come in third? I don't know, because now you have teams like Bonk stepping up now, so that's something that I'm excited, mostly because I honestly haven't watched a lot of EU as well, so I really want to get my IQ up watching that, get my information in while watching America. So I'm happy.
America. All right. Well, I think that kind of brings us to the conclusion here. I can't wait for First Strike to start. Hypoc, Valley, always a pleasure. You can watch Valoranting every week, Tuesday, 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. Pacific time. You can also follow us on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, twitch.tv/DNPeak, and on Twitter as well. And don't forget to follow our YouTube channel where we have all our highlights and stuff put out. And a quick rest in peace to Eddie Van Halen, dead at 65, believe it or not. Unfortunate turn of events here on October 6th, 2020. I would say we would play some of the music to play us up, but we'd be immediately taken off.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, he died. He died like 10 minutes ago or something like that. Anyway, on that happy note, we'll see you guys next week for more Valoranting. Thank you so much for joining us.